So here we go. All right, I got everything ready. Um, hey, I'm Noah. I'm with Scores on Strategies. Today we're PB over at Jaws, Junk and Waste Removal. How you doing today?
I'm pretty good. How are you doing?
Awesome. Yeah, I go ahead and hold on to my mic.
You don't have.
I need to get.
Can you hear me from there? If I'm just.
Yeah, I usually
okay.
just hold it right
Perfect.
here,
All
and
right,
then
cool.
everybody can hear. But so first off, I mean, we can get straight into like your story. Like, how'd you get into junk and waste removal?
Well, my family owns a landscape construction company, and I had recently gotten out of the service and had started working with them again. And our yard was just kind of inundated with a lot of things. We try not to be wasteful, so a lot of things get recycled or repurposed, but it was just kind of, piling up. And one of the things I started doing for the company was, helping with the haul-off process and disposal. And I had a truck, and we were dropping dumpsters and things of that nature. But when we're trying to clean up the yard, we reached out to one of the local franchises to come and give us a quote for hauling some stuff off.
Okay.
The process was a little frustrating, and just kind of seemed like we could do a better job. We ended up doing it ourselves, and in that moment I kind of realized that there was a need for people to lead in the waste management industry, to steward those things better. So rather than just taking everything to the landfill, actually trying to find a purpose for it, whether it's donating it or recycling it. And so one of our primary focuses is being able to do that for other people, do it better for ourselves, but also for the community.
What sort of like recycling do you do?
So we recycle a lot of things. Most often the two things that we recycle the most are metals. And that's pretty common. A lot of people know that you can recycle metal. And then the other thing that we recycle the most is mattresses. And not everybody realizes you can recycle mattresses, but you can.
How do you recycle mattress?
So we have a relationship with a company that actually takes the mattresses, and they strip them down, and then they use those resources in various ways. And so what we do is we haul them off. We take them to our yard and store them, and then we contact them to come pick them up. And then whatever we can generate from the recycling, we actually use that to donate to nonprofits that need funding and things of that nature. So one of the campaigns that we try to run is mattresses for the military. So when people call us, they'll pay us for our service to come remove the mattresses, but then what we're able to do with recycling supports the campaign. Mattresses for the military.
So I know you said you're a Marine and you're supporting the nonprofits. So how do you think your, military career transferred over into entrepreneurship?
That's a great question. Really, I just think, there's a lot of, so entrepreneurship is something that it's not for everyone. I certainly think that it's one of those, characteristic traits that someone has, they're just kind of born with. That's not to say that you can't cultivate skill sets and things that will make you successful in that endeavor, but I certainly think it's something that's in someone's heart and they have a passion for. Certainly things like leadership come to play. So the time that I spent in the service has, benefited me in that regard, because I've learned to become a better leader. And among many other skill sets that were cultivated during that time, but I think leadership is definitely one of the primary.
So basically leadership, and I know a lot of people that served, they say that waking up early has always been their, like, it just sticks with them. Does it stick with you, like, even after?
Yeah, I mean, you spend so many years with a routine and creating habits, and there's definitely power to that. So if you can learn to kind of sustain those things through your transition into, whether it's being a better team player or an employee in the corporate world, or doing it for yourself as an entrepreneur, I think that you create this idea of time efficiency, and you learn how to really make that part of your core schedule or one of your core habits. So getting up earlier, maybe not staying up as late, but just creating that consistency and having a schedule. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, even when we were talking a little bit before this about like being a young man, like starting out in entrepreneurship and being different than everybody else, do you think actually when you were in the Marines, has a lot of the people that were in the Marines with you, did they follow the same path into entrepreneurship, or how have you, like, when you go talk to them, like, where are they bringing success from being in the military into their careers?
Yeah, I mean, there's a wide range. Some service members, especially Marines, will end up in entrepreneurship, but a lot of them will also go on to do all kinds of other things. Some of them continue government employment, whether it's through certain agencies or maybe with their specific skill set or job that they had, they'll go and find another job within the government, or just in the civilian sector at a corporate, in a corporate entity. And I think the things that we bring to the table, aside from leadership, because that's something that's necessary throughout the entire organization, top to bottom, but cultivating other people, which is a function of leadership, but also identifying and creating efficiencies. We get really good at doing a lot with very little, especially in the Marine Corps. And a lot of people call it like balling on a budget, and that's kind of how it is, So you just being resourceful, being creative, thinking outside of the box, finding multiple solutions for a single problem, all of those things. And I think those are skill sets that are necessary across the board, no matter what endeavor you're involved in.
Okay. So just becoming more efficient, if it's in your job, if it's in entrepreneurship, anything like that. I've noticed a lot in my career as in efficiency is always the way you need to go. That leads me kind of into my next question. Like, how is your business from the time that you were starting and you just were like, hey, this commercial company sucks. Like, these guys aren't doing it the way I would do it. How has your business evolved from that truck to like where it is now?
Yeah, so when we started, admittedly, we didn't know a lot of the things that we know now. So in terms of our recycling and repurposing endeavors, we weren't as good at it for sure. I mean, the impact we have now compared to when we started is so much larger, and we quantify it. That's something that I spend a lot of time tracking, because obviously generating revenue is a way you can track business growth, right? But the metrics that I pay attention to aside from that are how much are we able to recycle? Are we keeping up a trend of continued growth in those endeavors, whether it's donating, recycling, or repurposing? Learning about the mattresses, for example, the whole first year, that was something that I was scratching my head about. How do we? I see them at the landfill all the time. You see them on the side of the road. No one wants to get rid of them. Usually, if you take them to the landfill, you have to pay extra to dispose of it there. Just things like that. So identifying needs, identifying selling points really, or points where people can save money. Same thing with like paints. That's another one, right? Like paints are considered a hazardous material. It has to be disposed of a certain way. A lot of times it ends up in landfill. It's not supposed to, but there are other ways to dispose of it that can save money and also help the environment. So for example, you can actually donate certain paints if they're not over a year old and if they're at least half full or more. But a lot of people don't know that. So those are things that we've learned along the way that have helped us become more efficient and have a much bigger impact in the community.
So we're definitely the same type of guy when it comes to like, basically, I always want to say like scratch until the bottom of the barrel, but that just doesn't sound right. It's basically like taking taking every single ounce that's left, basically, like licking the bottom of I don't know, basically like the bottom of the honey barrel, I guess, like trying to get all the honey out, making sure you use everything. Well, I saw the hat, Jaws. How'd you get that name? Like, what's the story behind that?
Yeah, so we went through a rebranding about a year ago, and In the middle of all that, we were trying to figure out how do we maintain how do we maintain our culture and our presentation. We want to present ourselves so people know that we're veterans. We want them to know that part of our business is about enabling us to continue serving community. So we wanted that veteran image. And if you remember the old World War II planes, they would paint the front ends with the shark teeth, and so that's kind of where the design came from. And if you look at it now, you can tell that's obviously what we're going with. Military guys, we like acronyms, right? So right off the bat, I was thinking, okay, we got to rename. What's the name? And we came up with Junk and Waste Solutions. And if you take the first letter of each one of those words, it spells JAWS. And so instantly I was like, all right, let's find JAWS. And then I was thinking, oh man, this is perfect. And so it just kind of came together like that.
I didn't even think about that. Wow, that acronym just works so perfectly. Wow, what the heck? All right, shoot. So that's another way I guess your business has evolved. You were like, why did you go through the rebranding? Like, what was the reason why it needed the rebranding?
Well, we previously were partnered up with another organization. It was kind of a franchise model. And there were just some things that we didn't find congruent. Our main purpose is to serve community. That is 100% our main purpose. We want to connect with the local community. We want to know where the needs are and how we can do a better job stewarding the abundance that we have here in America. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And so, there are certain costs associated with that, right? So we'll suffer a little bit on our margins and our profits and things. But that's part of who we are and what we want to do, and a lot of that has to do with our servants' hearts, right? We served and we were passionate about it, and we wanted to continue doing that, and this enables us to do that. And so we take the extra effort to fill the needs. That means separating stuff out. That takes more time, right, to make sure things get to where they're supposed to go. But our rates are still competitive. We're not the most expensive, we're not the cheapest, but we're going to go the extra mile and make sure that things are not going to the landfill that are not supposed to be. They're being disposed of properly, or they're being repurposed, recycled, donated to fill community needs, right? And that just didn't align with the business model. And so we just kind of came to a point where we just weren't agreeable. And so we decided to go our separate ways, and JAWS was born.
So with that, like, you wanted to find more people, like you were going to find basically a way to make it a little bit, sorry, I'm starting my words real quick. So one thing is, can you tell us more like okay, that's what I was going into, a memorable experience, because I know with Junk and Waste, I don't know how much you guys, deal with the customer, but do you guys do it? How do you explain that to the customer, like where their stuff is actually going? Because that was the question I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
How do you like bring that value?
Yeah, that's a great point. And for other entrepreneurs, I mean, that's kind of the sell point, right? It's like, how do you justify or articulate your price to value, right? Mm-hmm. And like I said, we're not the cheapest. We're also not the most expensive. Mm-hmm. And communicating that can be difficult because there's a lot of unknowns. Like, people just don't know about waste management, and it's hard to value something that you don't understand. Yeah. And so that's definitely a challenge point. So as far as communicating that to the clients or our potential customers, what I try to do is, when the opportunity presents itself, and I try to explain those things. Here's ways you can save money. Here's things to consider. Whether you hire us or not, when you're looking for other bids or you're dealing with other junk haulers, ask these questions, or pay attention to these things, and that'll help you make the best decisions you can make for yourself. And then I also try to help educate the community. So on our website, you can go on the tab. There's a tab at the top. It's called Trash Life. That's where we do our weekly blog. So every week I go in there and I post a short story or article or something that talks about like ways that people can save money. The deal with the paints, for example, I'll go on a deep dive and say, you can actually go to these exact places if you're in these areas, and you can dispose of X amount of waste for free, or you can go to these places and you can donate, or there's a blog in there about the mattresses and that whole process. Yeah. And then there's a newsletter. I do a newsletter once a month. In that, we highlight another local business. We highlight a nonprofit organization. We do a one-page article for each one. And on page 2, we always give a trick of the trade or a tip so that people who are reading can start to develop a better understanding of ways that they can save money, ways that they can participate with us and join us in our efforts to combat waste and also support the local community. So those are some things that we do.
I'm really curious to know, like, what is your guys' like customer like pipeline? Like, first of all, how do you find the people? And then how do you bring them through the process?
Yeah, it's a great question. So just like with any business, you're kind of speaking to advertising or brand awareness and such, right? And so there's always the pay to play, click ads. There's Facebook ads, Google ads, all kinds of different ones, Yelp ads. That's definitely one way, and I think it's important to incorporate multiple tools to achieve that brand awareness, to make sure that your online presence is there. But I think another important strategy is to get involved in your community. Get out there, do your market research, connect with your clients, get on their level, figure out what their needs are, figure out what the challenge points are, find ways to help educate them. Joining your local chamber of commerce or other meeting spaces and organizations, just getting involved in the community, putting yourself out there and just showing people that you care, I think is one of the best ways to achieve that.
Okay. And then from the process of, getting a lead from the community, from, online paid advertising, when I was starting my business, I definitely had some trouble with onboarding and stuff like that. Yeah. Do you always get somebody on the phone immediately? Do you have somebody in house? Like, how do you make sure your customers move through the pipeline well?
Yeah. So, I think for me to answer that question, I think it's important for me to say that I'm pretty comfortable with saying about 85% to 80% of our business, everything that's in the pipeline is in network and community. Oh, so okay. About 80%, 85% of our business is word of mouth. Okay. It's only that other 15, 20% that we're really trying to capture on, on click ads and things of that nature. We have everything dialed into one single point of contact. They're either going to get me directly or they're going to get my right-hand man. And so we kind of control the flow that way. We're both very confident and very passionate about what we do. Yeah. And so that kind of helps. Definitely when you start to grow and expand and you have other people taking calls and sales leads and those types of things, it gets a little bit more challenging to control that. But I think when you're growing and you're finding the right people to do business with you, it's important to try your best to find people that maybe share a passion that you share in what you're doing, or that can articulate the price value when they're talking to the customers and things like that.
How did you find that right-hand man? How'd you find him? Where'd you get this guy?
So we actually served together, and I say he's my brother. He's the brother that I was meant to have, one of two, and we've been through pretty much everything life can throw at you. And we met actually. He's from this area, but the first time we met was actually once I hit the Fleet Marine Corps. He had already been in for about a year. Yeah. He was one of the first Marines I met when I hit the fleet, and I actually worked for him for a while. Okay. Yeah, and so he got out before I did, and he's found purpose in his work and logistics and things of that nature. And about the same time that I had decided to start this business was when COVID kind of came around and just disrupted everything, the market and everything. And he's a man of principle, and he decided that he wanted to pull away from where he was at, and I just happened to start, and it just kind of worked out that way. And so he's been with me ever since, and he's definitely a heavy hitter. And he's, I trust him in and out, and I'm very blessed and very lucky to have that, because that's one thing I think about being in business. It's very hard. It's very hard to find a partner, someone that you can trust in and out, that cares as much as you do, and can carry that on in how they present themselves and conduct business. It's a very hard thing to achieve.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely had the experience of dealing with people in business that have taken money, like not been those type of people you should be in business with. But I mean, even before we talked, we know that most guys and girls that get into business have trouble finding those people. But I guess that means the Marines really did help you move into that spot and then have those things. But another thing with the Marines, I know you were in that IMAX movie. So, could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that was so the film was called Superpower Dogs, and the what they wanted to capture in the film was the relationship between humans and dogs, and how they've helped us, and how they continue to help us and serve us, right? And so they showcased 5 different dogs that do 5 different things. There was an avalanche rescue, a search and rescue, a dive rescue. There's a pair that are in Africa that hunt poachers. Yeah. And then there's the dog that I worked with, and her name's Ricochet. And she helps service members like me, whether they have, various different kinds of disabilities. And she has a surfing program as well. And she surfs with kids that are autistic. And she also surfs with people with physical disabilities as well. And so it's just really
surf.
Surf. Yeah. So she gets on the surfboard, and she goes out on the water with them. And the program's called Waves of Empowerment. And it's just really awesome to have been a part of that, because you get to see how she helps people find, the confidence and the spirit to push themselves and go out and do things and enjoy surfing that they'd otherwise not be able to do. But there's the bigger part of what she does was the healing, and that's what the movie was about. How that our portion of the film was about how she helped me overcome my struggle with PTSD and some of the things that I was struggling with, and how she helped me in my transition. And then also she ended up puppy training my service dog, Balboa. Oh, wow. And so Judy is her handler. Judy and Ricochet, they trained my dog Balboa. And that's been such a blessing.
How does the training work, and how does because I'm curious about that. I don't know how any of that works. I've only just had the dogs. I'll get some, we had dogs growing up, but how does that training look? What does it look like?
Yeah, it's probably it's about a 2-year process. They usually don't place a dog until after 2 years. Part of that is the actual training itself, for the specific tasks and things that they perform, but also a part of that is maturity as well. And so typically they're trained for a couple years. They get placed, and then there's a 1 to 2 week process when the new handler, or the individual that's going to receive the dog, will go and spend time for a transition, like a handoff. And then they'll take the dog home with them. Our situation was kind of unique. It was communal based. Judy and Ricochet spearheaded it. They took that burden on. They decided to volunteer to raise him for me. He was donated to them. They raised him. And then what was awesome about it was I got to be a part of the process, which isn't typical. So in the work that I did with Judy and Ricochet, they invited me to participate in the training. So I got a chance to kind of fly back and forth between DFW and San Diego and go see them, and help do some of the training, and then also so I could train too, so I could be a better handler and actually benefit from him as well. And so that was just such an awesome experience, because most times those first 2 years, the puppy years, you don't have a lot of interaction with the dog before you receive him, whereas I have pictures and things and time that I spent with him, so we have a really special bond.
Nice. So I know you said you're more of an open book. When I first called you to get this interview, um, what are some stories that you can tell? I don't know if you can tell any stories about your time in the Marines, but if you can, what type of stories have really like shaped your life and then shaped you to become the man you are today, even when it relates to business and everything like that?
That's a great question. That is a really great question. There's a bunch of stories. I could think right off the top, right off the bat. Some of the things that stand out the most are going to be stories of when troops have called me and asked me to be a part of their life, whether while I was still serving, but even more importantly after the fact. I've got guys that still call me from time to time and ask me, they want me to be a part of their wedding, or they want me to come to a promotion ceremony, or things of that nature. And that's what really is the biggest takeaway from the service is the people. That's what it's all about. Your brothers and sisters to your left and right. And I've been very blessed in that regard to have strong connections with them. They're my family, and they're always going to be my family. Some of the unique opportunities I had a guy, he was getting promoted on the East Coast. I was still on the West Coast. He invited me out, and, you do it. Just drop of the hat. You take some leave, you fly out, put your uniform on, you go and you celebrate with them. And I had another Marine of mine that she was getting promoted. She got an opportunity to be an interpreter in Vietnam, and what their mission out there is as recovery for MIAs and KIAs. And so when she returned, she was getting promoted. She called me up, said, "Hey, I want you to be there." Got on a plane, went to Hawaii. Was a part of her ceremony, and those are memories that stick with you for the rest of your life. It's just seeing that there is really no greater award or achievement than having your fellow man or woman desire your presence when they're celebrating their life.